absolutely, yeah. Right now, I would actually draw a huge similarity between the experience of like breakup, separation, or divorce, and that of chronic loneliness, which impacts roughly about 1 million people in the country, right? Just so you're aware. That's how many people are actually diagnosed every year with chronic loneliness, which is a strange thing to diagnose somebody with, but it's matter of fact. This is what's happening, right? So, and it's considered like part of a mental health problem, if you like. The impacts of being lonely are huge, and what that has on your psychology as a human being is huge. You know, this is also why, if you think about sort of the punishment system, to take someone out of society is one step. Obviously, to take away their freedoms is one step, but to then put them in what they call isolation is even worse, right? It's like we're going to now remove you from society to some extent. And so to experience loneliness has a very similar emotional backdrop to that of, like I suggested, divorce, separation, or breakup. So in my opinion, there are 3 key things which I think help any individual overcome such thing, right? And the first one might be really, really obvious. It's community. And what I mean by that is not just where you live in terms of like geographically, but in terms of the people that surround you, in terms of your community. What I mean is like, you need to think about the communities in which you currently are engaging in. Everybody engages in some, right? Even those experience chronic loneliness. What they say about loneliness is that you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. So it can't necessarily be to do with your lack of contact with other people. It's more so to do with the quality of relationship that you have with the people you come into contact with. So, you know, for example, your workplace might be a community. Your neighborhood is an example of a community where you may go to enjoy various activities or clubs. Those are, in essence, if you're meeting more than once a year, they become communities. So the question is that how are you engaging with your communities? And the reason why I say this is because community is where you actually mainly restore yourself from. Okay, and what that means is to relate to others makes you see your situation in a certain light, probably slightly differently. But also, again, the relatable thing that other people share with you is that we all actually do have problems. We all do have issues. We all have a sense of loneliness, a sense of whatever. And so there is like this theme of we can commonly share some ground and therefore build each other up, right? In essence. So when I say look at your communities, what that means is look at where you're frequently visiting, look at those places and look at the types of relationships, the types of interactions that you have with people when you go to those places. And then ask yourself, if they are all very surface level and all very, hey, how are you? Everything's fine. We don't really talk after that point. Then I would suggest that it's probably time for you to start adding more to the conversation, you know? And again, the purpose, by the way, is not the first person you come into contact with is, I need this person to be my best friend or whatever. You probably won't want that. But the point is to start practicing opening up conversation, because opening up conversation does turn into communication, which can, again, level you out in terms of your current experience versus the wider experience of the community, and how a community can also come together to support you in your experience. And I'm saying this because it doesn't happen overnight. In theory, you need to go to this place, go to this place, go to this place again and again and again as frequently as possible. And eventually over time is what happens is that these individuals, if you are investing in these relationships, become a form of community. And obviously that has pros and cons, but the pros are that you can be more level and more supported in what you're going through. So number 2, the second thing that I would say when experiencing this is to exercise. Because, and I say this quite often, but exercise is so important to the your mental well-being overall, not only sort of your cardiovascular system and your strengthening of your muscles, etc., which does something else for the mind as well, by the way. The strengthening of your body does naturally strengthen your mind, right? It's that the two go hand in hand. And the endorphin experience is something, of course, that you can generally have when leaving an intense exercise session. The fact that you have sweat or have, brought up your heart rate and pumped more blood around your body. It's cleaning things out. It's cleaning your system out. It's renewing. Of course, your body's renewing all the time, but you're now motivating and driving your body to do that. And of course, there are some like aesthetic goals that you may want to achieve, which may make you feel better about yourself. But exercise is one way to certainly change the mindset and the attitude. Even things like if you're tired and experiencing fatigue, and this again, these are symptoms of this as well. Exercise can kind of help to combat that. I know it might seem counterproductive or counterintuitive rather. However, exercise can help that. It can stimulate more energy overall. So I would definitely say to engage with some sort of exercise as well. For example, if you join a gym now can become a type of community, so you can actually kill two birds with one stone. So to many people I just suggest, look, go join a gym. It's a starting point. Now again, you're not going to just make best friends with everyone immediately, but there is a space where you start to attend. You'll know when you can get your regular workouts in, and therefore during those times you will experience other people who are getting their regular workout in, and you will start to see same faces on similar days and similar times throughout the week. Again, the more frequently you see these people, it can go from a hey to a hi, how are you, to a what's life saying, what can we train, can we talk, even meet up outside of the gym. And as just a community type of check-in. I've got two levels to the gym personally. I've got the hey, how are you, where I'm, a lot of the staff I'm very familiar with, and again, a lot of the other gym attendees and goers I'm very familiar with. But there are two types of days. There's days where I just want to put my headphones on. I don't really want to speak to anyone. I might give it a wave or something like that. And then there are days where I might have a bit more time, a bit more flexibility, perhaps even my mood's a bit lighter and I've got more energy, and I'm in a mood to kind of just, hey, how are you? Let me just check in with someone else. And what I try to do is even in my lowest moments, I try to take care of other people's experiences as well. So if I'm going through something particularly traumatic myself, one of the things I like to do is, rather than just be like, hey, I'm going through something traumatic, is I'm like, what's happening with you? Let me get a perspective of how I can support and help you, because then I believe in this kind of like, well, if you put it out there, it does come back to you. Maybe not from that person and that particular exchange, but I do believe that these things can kind of come back to you. So I think that that's just an important part of the healing process, and the part of also just restoring relationships with people. As an artist relationship manager for a very long time, one of the things I had to quickly learn about developing relationships with people is that you can't be too forceful or intentional necessarily about your first meet with people. Now, whilst first impressions do go a long way, it's really important to know that you've got to kind of have the faith and belief that you will see this person again. And therefore, it's far better just to be a nice, polite, welcoming person, and brief, if it's inappropriate to stay and have a conversation, or it doesn't quite feel like it's right. It's far better to be that, and then over time let things naturally progress. Not everyone will turn into that. There's certain people, just for example, I've known in the gym for a few years now, and our level of relationship is, hey, how are you? Cool. Keep it moving, right? And there are others where our level of relationship is, man, what's been going on? This latest thing I've been going through, my son's going through this, my daughter's going through this. The deeper things. And again, there's levels to community in that sense, but I just think it's exercise. But this is where exercise and community kind of come together. It doesn't have to be the gym. For those, certainly men that love to play sport, that is another form of community. It's great being around other men as well, with this sort of safe ability to release some aggression. It goes a long way, and that obviously happens through competitiveness in sports. So I endorse that as well. It can be just getting involved in an exercise class, or there's even like local runs and walks and bike rides that happen. I know people that even go on hikes on Instagram groups where you can just join a hike that's happening. And so these are things where I just encourage Again, community and exercise all in the same thing. Now, the last thing I'd say is faith. For me, I'm Christian, right? I believe in Jesus, I believe in God, and I have like a huge, I've always kind of had like a huge resound in my heart that there is a bigger, stronger, wiser creator entity, being, God, who is above my thoughts, above my life, above my control, for good and for bad. And I'm not saying God's got anything bad to do with my life, but I'm saying for all the bad things I've been through and for all the good things I've been through, I believe that there is a higher power. Now, that aspect of having a faith in a higher power. Now, I'm not necessarily promoting that you just aimlessly go find something to put your faith into, because I believe faith is something like an empty cup. If you don't have anything to put your faith in, something will just come and fill it. Do you see what I mean? It will just take it. You'll just put it somewhere and you have faith in things, right? I have faith in this sofa right now that it won't drop under my weight. Okay. That's a very loose kind of analogy of faith, but we all have faith in things. Now, if you don't have faith in something larger than yourself, then the fact of the matter is that you rely solely upon yourself, your own decisions, and which is fine for many, many people. However, when you find yourself in one of these situations, either loneliness or, again, the separation of a relationship, you need to have something which is above you in your understanding of what you're going through. Because if you are constantly your own God and your own assessor and your own modificator, then I think that you will always be responsible for every single thing that happens to you. And just the way that the world works is that I don't believe that to be the case. We simply can't be responsible for everything that happens to us. I'm not responsible for someone else's behavior, for example. So if that person chooses to hurt or offend me, how am I supposed to deal with that? Now, again, I'm not saying it's all just settled in finding faith, but what I will say is that my relationship with God has sustained me in a sense that no human relationship has been able to do. Now, I need human because I'm very sensory, and so I need to hear you, I need to see you, and ideally, the idea of intimacy, a hug, a touch is very, very needed as well. Let's not break away from that. That's why community is important. Having said that, you also must be able to kind of go outside of yourself. You must be able to find a strength and a power that is outside of yourself. And for me, that's God. Again, I can't recommend people just go finding anything, but what I will say is, like, there is a grounding in faith. I'm not talking about religion, I'm not talking about religious practices, I'm not talking about just going to read a doctrine and, morally adjusting your life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about not being constantly the captain of your ship. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a level to this where you are handing over a sense of control, and with that comes a sense of relief. Because it suggests that although, yes, this may not feel great right now, it suggests that there is still a bigger part of this where this is important that I go through, if I can contextualize it like that. So just to summarize, I think that those three things are really, really important when it comes to dealing with, matters of the heart and matters of relational connectivity. So that's what I would recommend. There's a lot more to it, but I just think if you took those three things away from today's conversation, that's probably a really, really good starting point for you to start to feel like you're healing, that things are looking up, and that you are in fact valuable and appreciated within society and as a person.